Now, since my triumphant return, I've received a bunch of tweets asking when my top 10 WWE matches video will be released. Now, the obvious thing to do here is to tell you all how my list is going to be way better than Adam Blompier's, but I'm not going to sink that low. It would be cruel. Adam Blampied is a sensitive soul. In fact, a week before his list was due to be released, he phoned me in tears. He was worried that the fans would make fun of him if he told the truth about the kind of wrestling he actually enjoys. He went on to tell me that the Kennel from Hell match was, in his words, an emotional roller coaster, and that Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe's Evening Gown match was the reason he fell in love with professional wrestling. I told him, Adam, don't worry, you guys would appreciate his honesty, but he decided to lie to you. He pretended that he enjoys technical prowess over elderly men dressed as women. Whatever. I'm Adam Pacitti from WhatCulture.com, and this is my top 10 WWE matches. Number 10, Ultimate Warrior vs Hulk Hogan WrestleMania 6, starting off strong. Okay, so let's ignore the fact that Hogan turned out to be a racist, Warrior turned out to be a homophobe. Let's ignore the fact that it wasn't an especially technically impressive match. It doesn't matter, because this is the match that made me fall in love with professional wrestling. I was 3 years old and my dad came home with a copy of WrestleMania 6 on VHS. Now, for the younger fans watching, VHS is a bit like YouTube, but without the nasty comments. Anyway, I was immediately mesmerised by the two guys on the cover. These weren't men, these were real-life cartoon characters. I sat in silence, breathtaken by what was happening on screen. A man who was so strong he could rip his own shirt in half was fighting a man who was literally grunting like a silverback gorilla. It was unlike anything I'd seen before. It was exciting, it was beautiful, it was a little bit ridiculous. It was wrestling. Number 9, Shawn Michaels vs Mankind, In Your House, Mind Games. This won't be the only time you're going to see Michaels on this list, and it also won't be the only time you'll see Foley. Both men are instrumental in my love of professional wrestling. HBK was at the height of his career, and Mankind was fresh out of a feud with The Undertaker, in which he showed his viciousness and his talent for in-ring storytelling. Now, for Foley, the match further proved that he had everything it took to be a main eventer, but I think the match did even more for HBK. Michaels showed us a side of himself that we hadn't ever seen before. He unleashed this inner rage that saw him brutalize the fingers of his opponent in an attempt to take away Foley's finisher, the Mandible Claw. It was very different to his usual style, and it's a match that changed the perception of Michaels to even the most hardcore of wrestling fans. Number 8, Hardy Boys vs Edge and Christians vs the Dudleys TLC 2 at WrestleMania X7. You know when people complain about the current state of the tag division? These 6 men are responsible. Okay, so it's not entirely fair to give them all of the credit, because back in 2001 we also had the APA, New Age Outlaws, Test and Albert, Too Cool, and even Kai and Tai. But these 3 teams were truly in a league of their own. Edge and Christian had chairs, Bubba and Devon had tables, and Matt and Jeff had ladders. Using these weapons, the first TLC match took place at SummerSlam 2000, and to be honest, it's almost deserving of a spot on this list in itself. But TLC 2 at the following year's WrestleMania was something else. In fact, I'll go on record and say that not only was this the greatest TLC match of all time, but it will remain the greatest TLC match of all time for the rest of eternity. It's that good. If you haven't seen it, pause this video, go and watch it, and then leave a comment about just how right I am. Number 7, the 1992 Royal Rumble match. So Jack and Blampied both included a Royal Rumble match, so I kind of feel like I have to as well. Is there really any debate that this is the best Royal Rumble? Because there shouldn't be. I mean, look at the star power involved. Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Randy Savage, Jake Roberts, The Undertaker, Sid, British Bulldog, Roddy Piper, Big Boss Man, Ted DiBiase. There wasn't a weak link. Something which really reinforced the idea that any entrant could win it. Ric Flair entered at number 3 and puts on one of the greatest Royal Rumble match performances of all time. He was targeted, he was an opportunist, he was a coward, he was Ric Flair through and through. He eliminates Sid and wins the WWF Championship after an hour in the ring. Woo! Number 6, The Undertaker vs Mankind, Hell in a Cell match, King of the Ring 1998. Mick Foley is my favourite wrestler of all time. I love his matches, I love his characters, I love his personality, I love his daughter, I love his books, I love his charity work, I love his in-ring psychology, I love his daughter. I love his promos, I love his beard, I love his comedy shows, and I love his daughter. Seriously though, whenever I mention my favourite wrestler to a non-wrestling fan, which is often because I talk about wrestling an awful lot, their immediate response is almost always, wait, Is that the guy that jumped off the big cage? I mean, sure, they might get the specifics wrong, but that's how big this match was. But the thing is, it wasn't really a match. I mean, sure, the bell rang, there was a pinfall, but it's hardly Savage Steamboat. So why do I love this one? Because it's insane, and it epitomizes the lengths that professional wrestlers, and especially Mick, would go to in order to entertain the fans. Foley didn't even need to return to the ring after being thrown off the cell. The match would still be remembered as it is today, without the second fall, without the thumbtacks, but he did, and why? Because Foley is God. Number 5, Bret Hart versus Steve Austin in a submission match at WrestleMania 13. Another obvious choice here, but this match is nothing less than a masterpiece. Austin enters as a heel, Bret as a babyface. In less than 25 minutes, their roles would be switched, and Austin would begin his meteoric rise to stardom. This is the match that made Austin. And it was a brutal one. Austin gets busted open, Bret works the legs, setting up for the sharpshooter, Bret locks in the sharpshooter, Austin, with blood pouring out of his forehead, refuses to tap. No, he would rather pass out from the pain. What a badass. Number 4, CM Punk versus John Cena, Money in the Bank 2011. To me, this is hands down the best match of the last 10 years. Not since Andy Kaufman stepped in the ring has the line between reality and fiction been blurred so expertly. If you're unfamiliar, I'll give you a quick rundown. Punk cost Cena a match on Raw, delivers the famous pipe bomb promo breaking the fourth wall, lets everyone know that his contract is expiring and he's going to beat Cena at Money in the Bank and leave the WWE with the title. Beat Cena, leaves with the title. The match itself was terrific, a proper on the edge of your seat classic, and when Punk left through the crowd with the championship, it made you need to see Raw the following night. Not only was it one of the best wrestling storylines, but as far as emotional investment goes, I'd put it right up there with The Red Wedding, Pam and Jim, and Who Shot JR. It was that good. But it achieved something even bigger, because for just a little while, Punk actually made being a wrestling fan kind of cool again. Kind of. Number 3, Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels ladder match at WrestleMania 10. Now, a lot of people think this was the first WWF ladder match, but that's not true. In 1992, HBK squared off against Bret Hart in a ladder match that went straight to video. As you'd expect from Bret and Shawn, it was a really solid match, but 2 years later, Razor and Michaels created something truly groundbreaking. We'd never seen a lot of the spots before, and having just watched it back now, it's a match that stands the test of time. It was innovative then, and it's still innovative now. I mean, look at this. Beautiful. Number 2, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. Jack and Blompy have kind of said everything that needs to be said about this match. It's arguably the greatest WrestleMania match of all time by 2 of the greatest of all time. HBK and Taker had incredible chemistry together and put on what was nothing less than a professional wrestling masterclass. Number 1, Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog, SummerSlam 1992. When I was just 4 years old, my father sat me down and he told me that the WWF was holding a big wrestling show in London and that he'd managed to get 2 tickets, one for himself and one for my brother Daniel. I was 4 years old and he said I was too young to travel to London, but he had arranged an equally fun day out for me. That's right, I got to visit the Isle of Wight garlic farm. Brilliant. I wouldn't be able to watch the show until it was released on video, but when I did, I was blown away by what I saw. Over 80,000 people watched live as Bret and Davey fought tooth and nail for the Intercontinental title in the main event. The match itself was terrific, and even though Bret lost, both guys came out looking like $1 million. At the end of the match, both men shook hands as I sat there with tears rolling down my face, and that's when I realised that I wanted to spend the rest of my life making videos about oiled up guys in their pants. So that's my list. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Of course you disagree, you're YouTube commenters. Make sure to leave a comment, like, share and subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling, and you can follow me on Twitter here.